It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Monday evening to you, wherever you may be. Game one of the series with the D-backs. D-backs come in 4.5 games behind the Dodgers, so despite all the fuss and fury with the Cardinals, it's still a pretty important series within the West. Talking about the West, with Arizona 4.5 back, they have scored a little more than 5 runs a game against the other Western Division teams. That means the Dodgers starter, Mike Bolsinger, will have to be on his game. He has a record of 3-1, a former D-back. He has a string of 18 2/3 scoreless innings here at Dodger Stadium. He gave up a run making his debut in the first inning against Miami and has not given up anything since. Another X, that would be Ruby De La Rosa, former Dodger, now pitching for Arizona. Ruby 0-1 against the Dodgers this year. He is 4-2 against the league. The Dodgers have beaten up on Arizona. They've beaten them all 3 games here. They've won 4 of the 6. And going back to last year, the Dodgers have won 10 of the last 12 games with Arizona here at Dodger Stadium. For the Dodgers, trying to recover from a bad series with St. Louis, and this is the way to do it against the team 4.5 back. We'll see if they can. Right now, sit back, relax. We've got a good ball game coming up and a whole lot more right after this. Welcome to Dodger Stadium as we await the start of Game 1 of the 3-game series with the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks are 4.5 games back of the Dodgers. They're 2 games under 500. They're a ball club that has averaged a little better than 5 runs per game within the Western Division. Here's the way they stack up for Chip Hale. Ender and Cassiardi will be in left field. A.J. Pollock in center. And the number 1 Dodger nemesis, Paul Goldschmidt, will be at first base. Yasmani Tomas in right field. Jake Lamb at third. Chris Owings, the second baseman. Wellington Castillo, the catcher. Nick Ahmed, the shortstop. And Ruby De La Rosa on the mound, the former Dodger. And the former D-back, Mike Bolsinger, on the mound for the Dodgers. This year at Dodger Stadium, he's made 4 starts. He is 3-1 here. He has a string of 18 2/3 consecutive scoreless innings. His first start, he gave up a run against Miami in the first inning and hasn't given up one since. So Bolsinger ready to work to Ender and Cassiardi. A contact hitter, does not strike out very much at all. Bolsinger delivers, and the first pitch in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Inciarte has only struck out 28 times. He has 65 hits. Strikes out maybe 10-11% of the time. Strike one pitch, he shows bunt, does bunt, charging, picking it up, glove hand, throwing in time to get him is Justin Turner. Turner gloving the ball. Normally on a slow roller or a bunt, you expect the third baseman to barehand and throw, but Justin, with that good arm of his, still scoops it with the glove and then just in one move throws a strike to Adrian Gonzalez. Nice play by Justin Turner, and just like that, we have one down in the first inning. This is a very, very aggressive Arizona ball club. Not only are they averaging better than 5 runs a game, they've had 97 hits swinging at the first pitch. And here's A.J. Pollock, and he hits the first pitch in the air to shallow right center. A trio of Dodgers. It will be Peterson making the catch. 1 minute it looked like Ethier. Hendrick had gone out to call, and instead Peterson takes charge. Well, here he comes. Paul Goldschmidt, the big first baseman. The highest career average against the Dodgers, David Wright of the Mets, 365. Marlon Byrd of the Phillies, 346. Then Paul Goldschmidt, 329. Joey Votto of the Reds, 327. Goldschmidt, you could write a book about what he has done just against the Dodgers. Big right-hand batter, checks in at the plate. Here comes Bolsinger's first pitch, down and away, ball 1. Since the middle of May last year, he's hitting .378 against the Dodgers with 7 home runs and 17 runs batted in. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Goldie takes low. 2 balls and no strikes. Goldschmidt, a remarkable athlete, and he could certainly be considered for the Triple Crown. He has 18 home runs, 1 less than Bryce Harper, 46 RBIs, 1 less than Giancarlo Stanton, and he's behind D. Gordon in the batting average. Takes the next pitch low. 3 balls and no strikes. They count to Paul Goldschmidt. He averages a home run about every 7% as Thomas waits on plate. Now the 3-0 pitch, they might let him swing. He looks at a strike, and the count 3-1. Goldschmidt is also averaging an RBI about every 4 at-bats. So he's a dynamite player. Now the 3-1 pitch on the way. Bolsinger turns, ready, right-handed deals, ground ball to third. Big hop, Turner stays with it, guns him out. So it's a 1-2-3 inning for Mike Bolsinger. That means 19 2/3 scoreless innings here at Dodger Stadium. At the end of half an inning, Arizona nothing, and the Dodgers coming up. Inning for Mike Bolsinger. Now let's take a look at Don Mattingly's lineup as the Dodgers try to turn things around. Struggling, of course, against the Cardinals. They have lost 5 of 7 against St. Louis. Jock Peterson starts it in center. Justin Turner at third. Adrian Gonzalez at first. Howie Kendrick clean up at second. Yasmani Grandal, Alex Guerrero, Andre Ethier in right. Jimmy Rollins the shortstop. Mike Bolsinger the pitcher. On the mound, former Dodger Ruby De La Rosa out of Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. Dodgers signed him back in 2007, and the first pitch a little low, ball 1-1-0. Jock Peterson trying to get the Dodgers off on the right foot. Peterson a very aggressive hitter, just as Arizona. De La Rosa comes back, big swing and a miss. And the count 1-1 to Jock Peterson, who kind of taps himself on the side of the helmet, reminding himself about swinging at a strike. 1-1 the count. Peterson swings. It's a fly ball to right field. A duo out there. It's the right fielder Tomas making the catch. Chris Owings, the second baseman, was almost alongside of it on a fly ball to right field. Let's check Arizona. It's Goldschmidt and Owings, Ahmed and Lamb, Inciarte, Pollock and Tomas, and Castillo behind the plate. So one away on a beautiful evening. The temperature right now 77 degrees. So it might have been very hot where you live, but it is now a lovely summer's evening here in the ballpark. And the mountains are back. Not that they ever left, but we couldn't see him for a couple of days during the Cardinal series. Justin Turner takes a strike and the count 0-1. Turner is struggling against left-handers, 143. Against right-handers, he's batting 347. The 1-0 pitch on the way is low, ball 2. In fact, the top 5 National League right-hand batters against right-hand pitching, Turner's right up there behind Yasmani Tomas, G.J. LeMahieu. Turner at the 347 batting average. Now the 2-0 pitch on the way. Justin swings, skies it foul. Coming back is Castillo at the base of the screen. Can't get it. Just missed it. And the count 2-1. It'll give us a chance to talk a little bit more about Justin Turner. Interesting numbers. When there's no one on base, he's hit 221. With runners on, he's hit 400. With runners in scoring position, he's hit 333. And the toughest of all, with runners in scoring position and 2 out, he's batting 308. So Turner waiting with the bases empty. And the 2-1 pitch swung on, and that's going to go into center field for a base hit. Over to get it is Pollock. And so Justin Turner continues his great hitting with a line drive single to center. That will bring up Adrian Gonzalez. So Adrian Gonzalez trying to keep it going now after the base hit, batting 330. 11 home runs, 39 runs batted in, and has a tremendous career against a lot of clubs, and especially Arizona. Gonzalez with his 21 doubles. He's hit safely in all 6 games against Arizona this year. De La Rosa ready, right-hander, drops it on the outside corner for a strike, and the count 0-1. No score, bottom of the first inning, game 1 of the 3-game series with Arizona. Adrian waiting. 39 RBIs. Turner at first. They load up the right side and they pitch him away, and the count 1-1 strike. It was interesting during the Cardinal series. Hard to remember if they ever loaded up one side or the other. But here in the very first inning with Arizona, they put 3 players on the right side of the infield. 1-1 strike. Outfield deep straightaway. De La Rosa delivers way outside, ball 2, and the count 2-1. De La Rosa didn't play organized ball in Santo Domingo. He did go to a tryout camp when he was about 16. Nobody offered. He was about 5'7" then and very thin. Right now he's a good 6'1" and at least 185. Left-hand hitters, however, have hurt him. Left-hand batters hitting .333 against De La Rosa. He was with the Dodgers in 2011 and again very briefly in 12, and that was it. No score first inning. Turner at first base with 1 out. And the 2-1 pitch on the way is swung on, whacked into right center. Base hit. Pollock over to cut it off. Turner is on the way to third, and he's in there standing up. Third base had to be covered by the pitcher De La Rosa because of the overshift to the right side. So Gonzalez, a long single to right center field. Turner takes third, and Howie Kendrick coming up. So Adrian drilled it. Nice play by a very good defensive outfielder, A.J. Pollock. Turner on his way, and you see there's nobody at third, but the pitcher goes racing over, and De La Rosa was there in case of a play. So the Dodgers trying to go after Arizona, and right away. And now the batter is Howie Kendrick. He's been getting right-handers out. De La Rosa has a .204 batting average against right-handers, but as we mentioned, left-handers have been killing him. The pitch to Kendrick is down and away, and of course that truth was held up with that long single by Adrian Gonzalez. No score, bottom of the first. 1 ball and no strikes to Howie Kendrick, whose knee is okay, banged up the right knee. The 1-0 pitch on the way. De La Rosa delivers, big shot up the middle, base hit. Scoring is Turner. Stopping at second is Gonzalez, and the Dodgers are on the board right away, leading 1-0 on 3 consecutive hits to center field. So that didn't take very long for the Dodgers to jump on De La Rosa. Breaking ball, Kendrick just went down to get it and singled up the middle. Mike Hartke, who at one time pitched for the Dodgers, is the pitching coach for Arizona, and Big Mike slowly making his way out to the mound. Hartke pitched for the Dodgers back in 1997. It looks like he's kind of laying down the law more than just advising, and they agree, both Castillo and De La Rosa, and the batter Yasmani Grandal, who'll be hitting left-handed. Grandal hitting .278 left-handed, all 5 home runs left-handed. He had his first career walk-off home run against Arizona first week in May. So Grandal checking in after a fly ball out by Peterson, 3 consecutive singles by Messrs. Turner, Gonzalez, and Kendall. So Gonzalez at second, Kendrick at first, and De La Rosa trying to pitch his way out of a jam. De La Rosa, 26 years old. Right-hander set, delivers, down and away, ball 1. 1-0 the count. Pitching a little bit behind. De La Rosa has not been hurt much with a 2-1 count until tonight, when Gonzalez singled on a 2-1 count. 1-0 pitch is swung on, and that's hit in the air to right center. Moving over is Pollock. He'll make the catch. Both runners tag, and both runners will hold on as Pollock fires it back into Owings. So 2 down on the fly ball, and the batter will be Alex Guerrero. Dodgers lead 1-0 on 3 straight hits. Turner, Gonzalez, and Kendrick. Guerrero appearing as a pinch hitter last night, holding his own in the starting lineup, batting .283 for the year. 10 home runs, that's third amongst the rookies. 26 runs batted in. So 2 on, 2 out, 1-0 Dodgers. De La Rosa out of a stretch. Another look back at the runners. Gonzalez at second, and the first pitch in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Two on, 2 out, 1-0 Dodgers. Guerrero at the plate waiting. De La Rosa trying to slow the pace down a little bit. Back he comes, low and inside, 1 ball and 1 strike. When De La Rosa was growing up in the Dominican, he played a game called La Plaquita. They tell me is a Dominican variation of cricket. They would have a large can, flatten it, use it as a target. The 1-1 pitch on the way, swung on and missed 1 and 2. And the target would be about 60 feet away. And of all the kids, as you can imagine, it was De La Rosa who would repeatedly hit that target and do it with increasing velocity. From that early start playing La Plaquita, here he is in the big leagues. De La Rosa holds a glove under his chin as he looks in to get a sign, hides the ball back of his right hip. Runners take their leads at first and second with 2 out. And the 1-2 pitch on the way. De La Rosa very deliberate. Here he comes. Fastball foul back. Still 1 and 2. So Alex Guerrero trying to keep it going. De La Rosa 0-1 against the Dodgers. When you ask him about Ruby, his name is R-U-2-B's, R-U-B-B-Y, but he thinks it was based on a precious stone. Here's the 1-2 pitch on the way, and in there, called strike 3, off speed after all the fastballs, and down goes Guerrero. So the Dodgers get 3 hits, a run, leave 2, and at the end of an inning, Dodgers 1, Arizona 0. Yasmani Tomas followed by Jake Lamb and then Chris Owings. Yasmani Tomas is a big enough fella, 6'1", 230, big enough to carry the contract that he signed with Arizona. In November of last year, Yasmani agreed on a 6-year deal for over $68 million. He was a star player in Cuba, one of the top 10 players over there. In the World Baseball Classic, he hit .375 and takes ball 1. He is really improving more and more, and since the first week in May, he's hit .358. So he's a force. Yasmani Tomas. The next pitch is shot right off the leg of Bolsinger, deflected to Hendrick. Hendrick throws and gets him. Now let's see if Bolsinger is able to continue. Mike drops to his right knee. Stan Conte going out to check him. He took a hard shot off the chin, I believe. The shin just below the knee. Now he's back up. Oh, let's wait and see. Don Mattingly out there joining Stan Conti. Technically, the play goes 1-4-3, literally and figuratively, involving the pitcher. Nailed him on the left side, but deflected to Howie Kendrick, who backed up. Ground ball back, and he turned. Looked like it hit him just below the left knee, maybe even on the calf, rather than on the shin. The bowl singer lifting that left leg very gingerly. I think when he turned, if it hit him on the calf, he would certainly be a lot better off than if that hard ground ball hit him off the knee itself. So they're going to let him throw a pitch or two to make sure. The ball was hit very hard. The bowl singer will make one toss. Naturally, he's 3-1 with the Dodgers. He has a streak. He's retired 4 in a row. Says he's okay. He now has 20 consecutive scoreless innings at Dodger Stadium. And you know he doesn't want to come out. Conti, meanwhile, talking some more to him, making sure, be smart. Don't risk an injury to your arm because you were hit on the leg. So Mattingly and Conti leave, and Bolsinger is ready to go back to work. Jake Lamb will be the batter. Lamb hitting .353. He's only been in 12 games. 6th round pick just 2 years ago by Arizona. And of course, the beginning of a lot of careers begin today with the Major League Draft. So Lamb checking in. Bolsinger ready, and the first pitch of the left-hand hitter is high. Ball one. 1-0 to Jake Lamb. Lamb out of Seattle, Washington. He went to the University of Washington. The 1-0 pitch, the left-hand hitter takes a strike, and the count 1-1. So Bolsinger apparently okay after taking that shot on the leg. Lamb is a big fella, 6'3", 220. Big strike zone. Bolsinger back, and he's a little high. Check swing, but it's a bum check. Tony Randazzo, the third base coach, indicates swing, and the count 1-2. Couldn't hold it back. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Now the 1-2 pitch coming up. Bolsinger delivers. Lamb swings, taps it in front of the plate. Up with it is Grandal to throw him out. So 2 down in the second inning, and Chris Owings coming up. Owings, the second baseman, has an 11-game hitting streak, and Bolsinger, meanwhile, just kind of rolling along. Mike's allowed 1 fly ball to A.J. Pollock, 4 ground balls, one of which was a bunt. So Chris Owings, who played a lot of shortstop and eventually winds up playing second base, displacing Aaron Hill. And the right-hand batter takes a strike. 0-1. Owings out of Charleston, South Carolina. He was a number 1 pick by the D-backs back in 2009. Strike 1 pitch on the way. Owings has a look at a pitch in the dirt. Dodger outfield, they moved Jock Peterson way over towards right center. So the big gap is in left center field. Meanwhile, Yasiel Puig, who played a couple of games getting ready, then played the Cardinals series, he's sitting this one out. Andre Ethier back in right field. 1-1 pitch to Chris Owings. Foul back to the screen, and the count 1-2. 2 years ago, Owings was the Pacific Coast League's Rookie of the Year, and he had such a marvelous year. He was also the most valuable player. 2 years ago, he was the Diamondbacks Minor League Player of the Year. So as a first-round pick, they're expecting a lot from him in the next few years. 1-2 pitch. Owings tries to hold up, commits, and strikes out. 6 in a row retired by Mike Bolsinger. And at the end of an inning and a half, Dodgers 1, D-backs 0. tomorrow. Sportsnet LA will be available to charter customers. So for information and channel listings, log on to sportsnetla.com. 1-0 Arizona, giving it up to the Dodgers on 3 consecutive hits by Turner, Gonzalez, and Kendrick. And now trying to add to it, here comes Andre Ethier, Jimmy Rollins, and the pitcher, Mike Belsinger. Dodgers out in front, but they have one certainly disturbing factor that's popped up pretty early in the year. The pitch to Andre Ethier, missing ball 1. The Dodgers leading after 7 innings. This year, they have lost 6 times while leading after 7 innings. All last year, they lost 7 times. So they're ahead of a bad problem and probably will pass it. 2-0 the count to Andre Ethier. Now De La Rosa comes back 2-0. Ground ball up along first. Backing up for a hop is Goldschmidt. Feeding his man coming over. And that's that. Andre Ethier is struggling. There's no 2 ways about it. As he goes back to the Dodger dugout, Ethier in the first 28 games had 5 home runs, 13 RBIs, and was hitting .329. The last 25 games, including tonight, he has 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, and his average has dipped to under .230. It is a grind out there, and only those who do that grind can understand. It is indeed a strong man's game. So 1 out, and the batter now, Jimmy Rollins. Rollins hitting .207, checks up on a pitch off the plate, ball 1. If you joined us late, with 1 out, Turner single to center, Gonzalez single to center, Kendrick single to center, and the Dodgers had a run. Rollins takes a strike. 1 ball and 1 strike to Jimmy. Batting a total of .207, 202 left-handed. Hits one to center field, but very playable, right into the glove of A.J. Pollock. And we have 2 down in the 2nd inning, and it'll bring up Mike Bolsinger.
Pitcher, number 46, Mike Bolsinger.
Bolsinger might not be much of a hitter. In fact, whether he can hit or not remains to be seen. He is 0 for 14, and he has struck out 6 of the 14 at-bats. Mike checks in. De La Rosa starts him low and away with a 93-mile-an-hour fastball. 1 ball and no strikes. It'll be the bottom 3 of the Arizona lineup when we get to the 3rd. Next pitch, a little topper up along 3rd. Picked up by De La Rosa. Guns it to first in time. Nice play by Ruby. So Bolsinger is out 1-3. Dodgers go quietly. De La Rosa has retired 5 in a row. And at the end of 2 innings, 1-0 Dodgers. be one of the first 40,000 fans in attendance and receive a Jock Peterson t-shirt. The t-shirt presented by Edmunds.com. So for more information, go to Dodger.com/promotions. Third inning, 1-0 Dodgers by Bolsinger. Very much at home, 20 2/3 now. Scoreless innings. First game he pitched for the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium was against Miami. He gave up a run in the first inning and never again. Never again so far, with Castillo, Ahmed, and De La Rosa coming up. So here's Wellington Castillo. Castillo, a switch hitter, hitting just 163. Came over from, in fact, in checking, he came over from Seattle. Mark Trumbo was traded away. They said he was a switch hitter. He's not. They gave two averages. One was when he was in the American League and one in the National League. And the first pitch to him is a little high, ball one. Castillo has reached base safely 10 straight times in the games he started against the Dodgers. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Ground ball to short. Up with it there is Rollins. Plenty of time. Flips it over. And just like that, one away. So that'll bring up Nick Ahmed. Ahmed hitting .212. Ahmed, among other things, will bunt for a base hit. So the Dodgers have to look for it. He's had 3 bunt singles, hitting .212. Minor league Gold Glove 2 years ago. Ahmed is from East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. Went to school at the University of Connecticut and was a second-round pick by the Braves. When he was in high school, he was a pitcher and a dandy one. He takes ball one. On the mound in high school, he was 21-3. He starred in basketball. He was a National Honor Society member, and in a class of 233, he graduated 17th. So Nick Ahmed, A-H-M-E-D, long and lean, 6'3", 205-pounder. His uncle is the baseball coach at the University of New Haven. 2-0 pitch on the way. He looks at a strike, and the count 2-1. Ahmed playing in his 52nd game, so he's missed about 6. 2 balls and 1 strike to the right-hand batter. Bolsinger's next pitch swung on and missed, and the count 2-2. Ahmed was a second-round pick by the Atlanta Braves. Now the 2-2 pitch on the way to Nick Ahmed. Bolsinger delivers, and it's lifted to right field. Going back a little bit is Ethier. Andre turns and puts it away. 2 down in the third. Bolsinger has now retired 8 in a row. And the batter will be Ruby De La Rosa. De La Rosa at the bat is 1 for 24, and he has struck out 7 times. 2 out, third inning, 1-0 Dodgers. Mike Bolsinger over the top, fastball in for a strike. 0-1 the count. Bolsinger with very good control, not an overpowering pitcher, but he can sure spin the ball. Strike 1 pitch off speed, and he drops that in. That was 78 miles an hour. So no balls and 2 strikes. Strike 2 pitch coming up. Bolsinger delivers, and that's strike 3 call. That will do it for Ruby De La Rosa. Second strikeout for Bolsinger. And at the end of 2.5 innings, he's retired 9 in a row, and the Dodgers lead 1-0. Lead 1-0 on 3 consecutive singles in the first inning. Ruby De La Rosa has been pitching uphill in the sense he has faced 9 batters and he's been behind in the count to 7 of the 9. That's usually a very dangerous way to go, and right now he has been touched up for 1 run. So Jock Peterson, who flied to right field, checking in. Jock has reached base safely in his last 20 games. 17 home runs, 33 runs batted in. De La Rosa delivers, bends one off the plate, 1 ball and no strikes. The infield loaded up on the right side. Nick Ahmed, the shortstop, stays in the middle, and the pitch in there for a strike. So Jock Peterson trying to get things started here. The next pitch low, gets away from Castillo, rolling away towards the Arizona dugout. 2 balls and 1 strike. Not only has Jock been on base 20 straight games, he's hit safely 8 of the last 10, and he's amongst the leaders in a lot of areas. Swings, doesn't get the next one, and the count 2-2. Ruby De La Rosa, the former Dodger for a little while, though he was certainly signed to the contract. He had made 28 pitches in the first 2 innings. He's in the dirt again. So Peterson up there working on a full count. De La Rosa, among other things, had Tommy John surgery back in 2011. His favorite pitchers as a kid, Bartolo Colon and Pedro Martinez. 3-2 pitch pulled on the ground directly to Goldschmidt. Goldie to the bag, and we have 1 away here in the 3rd inning. So 1 out, Justin Turner coming up. It was Turner who singled to center in the first inning to get the Dodgers started. Every ball club goes through it, and certainly the Dodgers are going through it. Remember back on the 12th of May, the Dodgers were 22-10. They were averaging about 5.3 runs a game, and the bullpen had the best ERA in the major leagues, 1.57. Turner takes a strike. However, since May the 12th, the team is 10-15. They're averaging 2.4 runs per game. Turner takes 2 strikes, 0-2. Excluding the 4 games in Colorado, the Dodger bullpen, an ERA of over 5, the highest in the majors. The next pitch swung on, fouled away. Turner still there, 0-2. Talking about the bullpens, the Arizona bullpen has already appeared in 203 games. The Dodgers, 158 innings. And Turner, a big swing, goes down. And let's see if he's okay. Turner on his knees. Stan Conley sprinting towards the plate. And Turner is down. Let's take a look. He strides into the pitch, spun all the way around and went down. See if the ball hit him. Yep, got him on that right knee, and that just took him right out from under. So Turner hit by the foul. They're working on that knee right now. So timeout for the moment. So Justin Turner, who's been a terrific hitter for the Dodgers, fouls one off the knee. And they slowly help the redhead up. And now he'll try and walk it off. Well, Justin, if humanly possible, will stay in the game. Conte wants to make sure. Justin doesn't really feel like talking. He just wants the bat. Conte back to talk to him again. Striding into the pitch, and he got him right on the knee. So we'll see just how long Justin can stay in. We'll see whether the knee stiffens up or not. though Alberto Callaspo puts the glove back for the moment. Turner still not quite ready. Took a nasty shot on the left knee. Okay, back to work, and the strike 2 pitch is taken low. Ball 1. 1-2. Ruby De La Rosa, in his last 6 starts, has 2 wins and no losses. But boy, they've gotten him runs. Turner, meanwhile, a fly ball as he jogs slowly to first. Coming in a hurry is Pollock to make the catch. And we have 2 down in the 3rd inning. And Justin appears okay. Guaranteed he's biting the bullet. But we have 2 out and Adrian Gonzalez coming up. So Turner, a foul ball, makes it back to the dugout. And here's Adrian Gonzalez, single to right center in the 1st inning, sending Turner the 3rd. And he came home on the base hit by Howie Kendrick. De La Rosa deals in on the hands, check swing. And it's a strike. 0-1 the count. So the one man they load up on, and all eyes in the dugout are on Turner. The next one to Adrian, ground ball to the middleman out on the grass. Chris Owings makes the play. So the Dodgers go in order. That's 8 in a row retired. Ruby De La Rosa. And at the end of 3, Dodgers 1, Arizona nothing. Baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by the Dodge Challenger. With an EPA estimated 30 highway MPG, this car was made for driving in California. Visit Dodge.com today. Mike Bolsinger going to work. He's retired 9 in a row in 3 innings. And he'll have the top of the order. Ender Inciarte, A.J. Pollock, and then Paul Goldschmidt. Inciarte is from Maracaibo in Venezuela. He'll steal 3rd base, so if he gets to 2nd, the Dodgers had best keep an eye out on him. Hitting .258, 5'11", maybe 160, though he's not a big man at all. Turner is in on the grass at 3rd, and the pitch is strike, 0-1. No balls and 1 strike. Ender signed by the D-backs back in 2008. Pull that inside pitch. No balls and 2 strikes, the count. Ender, the name uses the Spanish naming customs. The first or paternal family name is Inciarte, and the maternal family name Montiel. But he drops that last part, stops at Inciarte, slices one down the left field line foul. Still no balls and 2 strikes. Inciarte signed as an international free agent with the Diamondbacks, and he competed for a spot with the Phillies during spring training. That's a little high, 1-2. He remained with the Phillies for 1 game, designated for assignment, and the Diamondbacks reclaimed him. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Foul back. Waiting on deck, A.J. Pollock. One nothing Dodgers, top of the 4th. And hit by the diving Turner for a base hit. So after retiring 9 in a row, Bolsinger gives up the single. Turner limping a little bit on that bad wheel. Don't think he would have made a play. He came, well, a foot or so shy of that one. So Inciarte at first base. And look at Justin trying to get up. One thing to go down, but it was painful to get up. That knee's going to bother him. He's now questionable, really, as to just how long he can stay in the game. Here's Pollock, fly to center in the 1st inning. And a strike. Pollock, by the way, gets a lot of infield hits, and you have a third baseman with a bad knee, and you're at somewhat of a disadvantage. Pollock's had 14 infield singles. He has a couple of bunt singles. And as you can imagine, runs very well. Pollock does the base stealing as well. No balls, 1 strike. Pollock, coming into the game, has stolen 14 out of 18. So Inciarte at first, nobody out, 1-0 Dodgers in the 4th. D-backs are not bad in 1-run games. They're 11-10. The Dodgers in 1-run games, they are 7-10. Ball really had some sink to it. 0-2 the count. Pollock is truly a wonderful center fielder. They can't really be much better than A.J. He's from Hebron, Connecticut, out of the University of Notre Dame. No balls and 2 strikes. Inciarte, and remember, Arizona runs 52 stolen bases. Inciarte has stolen 8 out of 12. Just seems like it's an aberration. I mean, for years it was the Dodgers stealing all the bases. Look at that, 52-14. 0-2 to Pollock. Pollock, one of those clutch hitters. He's 2nd highest in the National League in driving in runs from the 7th inning until the end of the game. 0-2. Off the plate, no throw. Sends Inciarte sliding back to the bag. 1 run, 3 hits for the Dodgers. No runs, 1 hit for Arizona. And remember, against the Western Division teams, Arizona is averaging a little better than 5 runs a game for Chip Hale. One and 2. And that's strike 3. So Pollock, little shot, down he goes. 1 out, Inciarte holding, and now it's hold on to your hats time. Paul Goldschmidt coming up. To the pitch, crossing the plate at the knees, and that's all that counts. Where it winds up after that's another story. So Pollock strikes out, and now Paul Goldschmidt. 1 out. Goldie has improved in every conceivable area. In fact, 2 years ago, he grounded into 25 double plays. This year, he has grounded into 3. He's on a pace to ground into only 9 double plays. So he's just a remarkable hitter coming into his own. At Dodger Stadium in 29 previous games, he's hit .345 here. No balls and 1 strike to Paul Goldschmidt. Off the plate, throw down, and Ciarte back standing up, which made it closer. Interesting, it was close with a right-hand hitter up. It's one thing with a left-hand hitter, there's the element of surprise, but Ciarte could see it early enough. With all of his troubles and beating up on the Dodgers, what's really a note of irony for Goldschmidt, he was drafted by the Dodgers. He takes in the dirt. He was drafted in the 49th round and passed the Dodgers to go to school at Texas State. Goldschmidt, impressive looking. He's 6'3". He's about 245 pounds. 2-1 to count. 1-0 Dodgers, 4th inning. Ciarte at first, 1 out. And that's a little low. So 3-1 the count. Waiting on deck, Yasmani Tomas, who almost took Bolsinger out of the game with a shot off his knee. 3 balls and 1 strike. There goes Ciarte on ball 4. The throw down. There was no reason to throw. So Goldschmidt draws the walk. There are runners at first and second and 1 out. And the batter will be Yasmani Tomas. The plate umpire tonight is Will Little. He's been a professional umpire since 2007. He umpired in the 2012 World Baseball Classic. Just starting out, really. So Will Little behind the plate. Dodgers on the defense here. 2 on, 1 out. And Yasmani Tomas, who hit a shot off Bolsinger's leg. It carried to Kendrick, who threw him out. Tomas, the cleanup hitter. Going to second base is Kendrick. That made Ciarte retreat a little. Don't forget, Ciarte has stolen third base twice. The Dodgers have to watch him. Yasmani Tomas, and in a game that features 2 Yasmanis, the other one, Grandal, goes to the mound. So Thomas just trying to stay loose. When Tomas signed that huge deal for over $68 million, he was 24 years old. Now, in the total dollars among Cuban players, Tomas' deal would fall short of the $72.5 million 7-year deal between Castillo and the Red Sox. And now look at that. Turner has tried and he just can't do it. So Turner will have to give way to Alberto Callaspo, and the Dodgers lose one of their most productive players, at least for the remainder of the game. We'll see whether he can come back tomorrow or not. Hit by his own foul ball, and Castillo has to take over. So Callaspo taking over at third base. Turner goes out, and the Dodgers in a little trouble here. You have a power hitter at the plate. 2 on, 1 out. Bolsinger, who knows about taking a shot off the leg, a la Turner. Callaspo is deep at third with Tomas at the plate. half a swing for a full strike, and the count 0-1. The scouts have a scale anywhere from 20 to 80. And as far as power is concerned, he rated a 70. Dodgers with Kendrick going to the bag, trying to take a step away from Inciarte. They have to worry about him stealing third, especially with a right-hand hitter up and the third baseman deep. 0-1. And he bluffs, and a good bluff. The pitch dropped at the plate. That startled Grandal. It looked for a split second like Inciarte was going to go to steal third. There he goes, and then jams it on, and that rattled Grandal a little bit. So 1 ball and 1 strike to count. So Inciarte has the Dodgers a little edgy out there at second. The 1-1 pitch on the way. Swung on, fouled away upstairs. Tomas came in hitting .338. The only big surprise for him so far, he has just 1 home run. 21 runs batted in. Well, they certainly expect him to hit a lot more than 1 home run. He has a kind of an uppercut swing waiting behind him. Jake Lamb. So Ender Inciarte, he's a pest out there in the bases. Stolen 8 out of 12. Stolen third twice. By moving around, of course, he opens up the holes in the infield. Kendrick trying to hold him on. The 1-2 pitch swung on, ground ball to short. The feed by Rollins, the turn by Kendrick, double play. So Yasmani Tozman gets into the double play, 6-4-3, no runs ahead and a man left. And at the end of 3.5 innings, it's 1-0 Dodgers. .5 p.m. the Dodgers and the Giants, and the first 40,000 fans in attendance receive a Father's Day barbecue set presented by Farmer John. So bring your gloves and join in a post-game catch on the field as well. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotion. Howie Kendrick, who knows all about having a sore knee, will start it off. Then it'll be Grandal and Guerrero. The Dodgers losing Justin Turner on a foul ball. Hit him in the knee and just folded him down into a heap. Ball 1 to Howie, who singled to drive in a run in the first inning. Since the flurry of 3 straight singles, De La Rosa has retired 8 in a row. And there's a base hit up the middle. So Howie Kendrick is 2 for 2, and the batter will be Yasmani Grandal. Looking at the National League starters and the earned run average, the Cardinals lead with a 2.8 ERA, then Pittsburgh and the Dodgers. Well, it'll be interesting to note that the Cardinals will look so good here. Won 3 out of 4. They're in Colorado, and they are being pounded. Colorado 11, and the high-flying Cardinals 3. You go to Colorado at your own risk. Meanwhile, Kershaw gave the Dodgers the victory with the one hitter. As usual, with his pal A.J. Ellis right alongside of him. So here's Grandal throwing to first. Kendrick back to the bag. Kendrick has 2 stolen bases. He's also been caught twice. Grandal flied to center in the first inning. Since they load up the right side of the infield, it certainly is a temptation to try and bunt, because with the shortstop so far away, if you bunt the ball up along third base, the chances are you're going to beat it out. 1 ball and no strikes. One and one. So first is show bunt, then you swing from the heels. One thing about De La Rosa, he has been victimized by hitters putting the first pitch in play. Batting average first pitch in play is .545, just like Howie Kendrick coming up and getting the base hit. And at least so far this year, it's the bottom of the lineup that has done exceptionally well against De La Rosa. 1 and 1. Off the plate, ball 2. So there's no third baseman. The shortstop way over to his left. I mean, if Grandal ever got a ball that all he had to do is make contact up along third, there's no one there to get him. Grandal like a statue the way he holds that bat. 2 and 1. Wow, De La Rosa taking a lot of time. Ruby, as we said, has been getting right-hand hitters out, but tonight Howie Kendrick has 2 hits. Turner had 1. And ball 3. 3 and 1 the count to Grandal. Interesting too for De La Rosa. In his 11 starts, he's allowed 12 home runs. That's in 69 innings. For the Red Sox last year, he gave up 12 home runs in 101 innings. 3-1 pitch is ball 4. So Grandal gets the walk. Kendrick goes to second. Dodgers at first and second, nobody out. And the batter, Alex Guerrero. For the Dodgers, they're trying to keep the good things rolling. They have beaten Arizona 6 straight times here, and 10 of the last 12. So Mattingly trying to get at least a couple of more runs here, leading 1-0. First and second, nobody out. Guerrero, Ethier, and Rollins coming up. Kendrick at second, Grandal at first. Infield, normal alignment. Off speed. Good change for a strike. 0-1 the count. De La Rosa has clocked up around 89-91. A few years ago, they talked about how he was clocked 102. Slow breaking ball. That's his curveball. He also has a slider, which he throws pretty hard, and a changeup. Oh, and 2 the count. 2 on, nobody out. 4th inning, 1-0 Dodgers. Fastball, and it's looped into left field for a base hit. They're waving Kendrick in. The throw to the plate is offline. It gets by Castillo to the backstop, and the runners move up an additional 90 feet. So on a no-ball, 2-strike count, bad count for a pitcher to give up a base hit, and Guerrero just hits it into left field. Kendrick scores. Runners go to first and second, and then the throw to the plate goes to the screen, and the Dodgers now are at second and third. Inciarte will be charged with the throwing error. A better throw, he might have had a play on Kendrick, but it was way offline. So the Dodgers now not only have a 2-0 lead, Mike Harkey is back out on the mound talking to his pitcher, and the Dodgers have a chance to get a couple more. Second and third, and nobody out. So Alex Guerrero, a 2-strike base hit and a run batted in. Inciarte draws the error, and Andre Ethier will be coming up. A little while ago, we talked about Andre struggling for the last 3 weeks after giving the Dodgers a great month. Well, he usually does exceptionally well against Arizona, and especially here at Dodger Stadium. In 72 games for Andre, he has 13 home runs, 47 runs batted in, and a .353 batting average against Arizona here at Dodger Stadium. So we'll see what he does right now with first base open and Jimmy Rollins on deck. So Grandal down the line from third, Guerrero at second, nobody out. The infield halfway. Foul back, 0-1. So Jake Lamb even with the bag at third. Goldschmidt is up a little, but Ahmed and Owings are back. Dodgers lead 2-0 in the fourth. One ball, one strike. One and one. Fouled away. 1-2. De La Rosa has been around a while, and he has some talent. It just has not come to the surface. His career starting this year, 8 wins, 15 losses, 20 home runs allowed, and an earned run average over 4. But he comes into this game, 4 wins and 2 losses. 1-2. High fastball. Now that's as hard as we've seen him thrown in a long time. 97. As we said years ago, they clocked him anywhere from 95 to 102, and Jimmy Rollins probably remembers those. 2-2 the count. And that's slapped in the air to shallow left. Inciarte is going to have to play it on a bounce. Nowhere to throw the ball. He gets it back into the infield. So the Dodgers on a fly ball single by Guerrero get one. Fly ball single by Ethier. They get another. Grandal brings it in. And the Dodgers lead 3-0. And Guerrero is now at third. So a breaking ball down and away. Kind of like a tennis swing. And Andre's able to lift it into shallow left field for a base hit. And Inciarte no play. So in the inning, we've had 3 singles, a walk, and a throwing error. Grandal and Kendrick have scored. Dodgers lead 3-0. Here's Jimmy Rollins, who flied to center in the second inning. Still nobody out. Oh, and 1. They're moving around in the Arizona bullpen. Mike Harkey on the phone to get somebody up. No one actually throwing yet, but they're moving the furniture. 0 and 1. One ball and 1 strike. So the Dodgers trying to continue to abuse Arizona if they can. They've beaten them 4 out of 6. They've won 6 straight against them here. 10 of the last 12 here. Andrew Chafin, a left-hander, gets up in the Arizona bullpen. And Rollins lays off a pitch low. 2 and 1 to count. So Chafin at the bit. He's down there in the pen. Chafin. Made 18 pitches so far in the inning. 3 singles and a walk. Deep right center. Back goes Pollock to the track at the wall. Gone. Home run, Jimmy Rollins. 6-0 Dodgers. So the Dodgers now 6 runs, 7 hits for Jimmy Rollins. He hits his 7th home run. And the Dodgers a commanding 6-0 lead for Mike Bolsinger. That's a strike to Mike Bolsinger. So we were talking about Ruby De La Rosa having given up 20 home runs in his career. This year, he had allowed 12 home runs. That's the 13th. So for De La Rosa, he certainly doesn't figure to be long for the game. Jimmy in high spirits. I bet his young daughters are happy right now for Dad. So De La Rosa now 3-1 to count. For Chip Hale, another dark moment at Dodger Stadium. That's a strike. You know, we talked about the pitchers. Bolsinger formerly with Arizona, now with the Dodgers. De La Rosa formerly with the Dodgers, now with Arizona. Chip Hale, the manager of Arizona, he was with the Dodgers back in 1997. Take another look for the Jimmy Rollins Marching and Chowder Society. Fastball out over the plate, and Jimmy knew what to do with it. No doubt about home run. So the Dodgers have scored 5 times here in the 4th inning before they finally make an out, and it's Bolsinger who strikes out. So Peterson, the batter, flied to right, grounded out, takes ball 1. 1-0. Lamb, Owings, and Castillo due up for Arizona in the 5th inning. That's a strike. So as you can see, the Dodgers struggling for 4 games with the Cardinals. And now tonight, they get it all, almost in 1 inning. But I agree with you, it's a big difference playing Arizona and the Cardinals. By the way, tonight, a big slice of humble pie for the Cardinals. The Rockies beat them 11-3. Welcome to Denver. The Padres won 11 innings. They just defeated the Braves 5-3. Three and one. Foul ball down the left field line, out of play. Cardinals began the day 6.5 games in front of Pittsburgh. The Giants are idle today. That should be in there. Yep, strike 3. Looked like a good pitch up here. Jock didn't think so, but he's done. Well, Peterson strikes out. Take a look. Yeah, that looked like it got a good portion of the strike zone. So that was a good call by Will Little, the plate umpire. Down goes Jock. 2 strikeouts for De La Rosa. And here's Callaspo. And a strike. Justin Turner fouled a ball off his knee. Tried to gamely stay in. Could not do it. Callaspo finishing up for him. 1-1. Dodgers can ill afford to lose Turner. 2 balls and 1 strike to count. We were telling you earlier about Turner hitting .347 against right-handers. He's up there with the top 5 National League right-hand batters against right-hand pitching. Turner hitting .333 with runners in scoring position. So he would be missed if he's out of that lineup. Meanwhile, Jimmy Rollins makes the most of it as he comes up with 2 men aboard in the 4th inning and unload over the center field wall. Pollock watching it go out. It made it a 5-run inning, and the Dodgers lead 6-0. You'll go behind the scenes as pitcher Josh Raven makes his major league debut for his hometown team. Plus, pitcher Juan Nicasio enjoys dinner at his favorite restaurant in Denver. Be sure to don't miss Backstage Dodgers Thursday at 7 only on Sportsnet LA. Jimmy Rollins 3-run home run. Dodgers lead 6-0, and we're in the 5th inning. Jake Lamb, Chris Owings, and then Wellington Castillo in that order. Ball 1. De La Rosa had a very rough fourth inning. He made 36 pitches, though he's now made 78. Bolsinger backing up the rubber. Jake Lamb hitting .343. That's a high strike. 1 ball and 1 strike to Jake. Big bouncer foul down the line. 1-2. Jake was a 6th round pick out of the University of Washington back in 2012. Earlier, he had been selected by the Pirates back in 2009, but he had a baseball scholarship to Washington, and he took it. Wise young man. Pulled on the ground to Gonzalez. Adrian will do it himself. So 1 out in the 5th inning. Chris Owings struck out in the 2nd inning. He's 0 for 1. Callaspo plays him in on the grass at 3rd. And a strike, 0-1. Owings picked up his first major league hit in September 2 years ago in San Francisco. And ball 1. He thought about going to school at USC, did Owings. His USC, however, was the University of South Carolina. 1-2. 2-2. Bolsinger has allowed 1 hit, single to left by Inciarte, opening up matters in the 4th inning. Dodgers lead 6-0 thanks to a 5-run 4th. 2-2. 3-2. Fastball got him. So Owings caught looking, and down he goes. 4 strikeouts for Mike Bolsinger. And with 2 down, the batter is Wellington Castillo.
Number 7, Wellington Castillo.
So Castillo finishes blowing a little bubble gum and checks in to hit. Wellington is from the Dominican, originally signed by the Cubs about 11 years ago. Strike, 0-1. Fastball missed for Castillo. He was signed back in 2006. Came up to the Cubs in 2010, up and down in their system. Then he went to the Mariners earlier this year from the Cubs, and then the Diamondbacks. 1-2 the count. When Castillo signed his first contract, he was only 17 years old. Passed up offers from the Phillies, the Cardinals, and the Diamondbacks, and went with the Cubs. He looks just like a catcher. He's 5'10" and a good 205 pounds. Way out in front of it. Down he goes. That's the 5th strikeout for Mike Bolsinger, and through 5 innings he's been absolutely brilliant, allowing 1 hit. And at the end of 4 1/2, 6-0 Dodgers. Southern California Toyota dealers. Now, during Toyota's summer savings, you can save big on any 2015 Camry. And buy Jack in the Box. Taste the new black pepper cheeseburger today, only at Jack in the Box. Bottom of the 5th inning, 6-0 in favor of the Dodgers. They scored a run in the 1st inning, and then thanks to a 3-run home run by Jimmy Ronald, they scored 4 more, +1, for a 5-run 4th inning and a total of 6-0. Gonzalez grounds one into shallow right field. The throw back to first baseman Goldschmidt in time. So Gonzalez losing a base hit with that overload, and we have one away. When we started the game tonight, we were a little bit puzzled because the note said Arizona has been giving De La Rosa an average of 9 runs in each of his last 6 games. And we thought, wow. And then it said over those 6 games, he has 2 wins and no losses. And we thought, how in the world can you be 2-0 in a 6-game stretch where you get 9 runs a game? That's a strike. Well, it's been that way. They've had some high-scoring games, and he has barely survived. A shot into left field. So Kendrick is 3 for 3 as Howie singles to left with 1 out, and the batter will be Yasmani Grandal. 8 hits for the Dodgers. Here are the scores of the games involving Kendrick. 11-0, 14-6, 9-6, 9-8, 7-5, and then there was a game, no decision, 3-2. So even though they've gotten him 9 runs a game in that 6-year period, 2-0. Wow. Grandal flied to center and walked. Oh, 1. It'll load up the right side, and I think he was going after a pitch down, hoping to maybe hit it to left field, and he and Castillo having a smile over it. I mean, you just look at that lineup and the way they're set, and what a temptation to try and do something up along third base. 1-1. 6 runs, 8 hits for the Dodgers. No runs, 1 hit. Inciarte singled, opening up the 4th inning. Pulled on the ground, over first and down the line. Coming a long way to get it is Tomas, waving Kendrick to third on the long double as Howie stops with just 1 out. So Grandal, with everybody loaded on the right side, still able to pull the ball over first base and down the line for a double. Goldsmith diving at the ball, but as he moved, it went right by him. He was coming off the bag, having been holding Kendrick. So Grandal doubles. Dodgers at second and third with 1 out. They've already broken the game open. Now they want to just shred it to pieces. Here's Guerrero, struck out and hit a no-ball 2-strike pitch for a base hit to left field in the 4th inning. Infield has to play up now. J.C. Ramirez throwing in the pen behind De La Rosa. De La Rosa is due to bat second in the 6th inning. 6 runs, 9 hits for the Dodgers. Second and third, 1 away. Fastball way in. 1 ball and 1 strike. One and 2. In the first inning, the Dodgers had 3 singles for a run. In the 4th inning, the Dodgers had a single, a walk, a single, another single, and then the 3-run home run by Jimmy Rollins. So De La Rosa being roughed up, and the Dodgers trying to add to it, and Rollins still not even in the on-deck circle. Ethier out there in front. And off-speed pitch for strike 3. Guerrero can't do anything about it. Growl maybe a little bit and walk away. Pretty good changeup. So Guerrero goes down, and Andre Ethier coming up with first base open. Ethier, single to left, last time up. And drives one to right. It's a mile. Staying fair, gone. And the Dodgers now lead 9-0. So Ruby De La Rosa gives up 2 more home runs. He has now allowed 14 home runs this year. And that thing, not only no doubt about it, it was a question just where it was going to go. It was so high, looked like it was going to go to the bullpen, went right alongside the bullpen and kicked in. So Ethier crushes one, and the Dodgers now have a 9-0 lead. Adrian Gonzalez, little happy talk with Ethier. Remember earlier we talked about the fact that Andre in his first 28 games had 5 home runs, 13 RBIs, and hit .329. In his last 24 games, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, and a .230 batting average. But now it's 3 home runs, 12 RBIs in the last 24. So he's come back with a vengeance tonight. But if you had to guess if he was going to have a big game following a struggle, it would be against Arizona here. He's hit 14 home runs, and he has 50 runs batted in, batting .350 against Arizona at Dodger Stadium. So Andre public enemy number one against Arizona. Jimmy Rollins hit his 3-run home run in the 4th inning. Dodgers 9 runs, 10 hits, and the Arizona Diamonds have 1 hit. 3-2. Ground fair ball. Goldschmidt to the bag, and that's the last out. So at the end of 5, it is more than a tidy affair. The Dodgers have picked it up and just about run away with it. After the home run by Rollins in the 4th, we see Andre skyrocket one into the bullpen. Another 3-run home run, and the Dodgers lead 9-0. About to break a record, 56 consecutive scoreless innings turned in by Walter Johnson. And finally, the Phillies had a base hit by Tony Taylor, a base hit by their catcher Clayton Dalrymple, a pinch hitter Howie Bedell came up, hit a fly ball deep enough to score Taylor, and the string had finally broken. 58 2/3 consecutive scoreless innings for Don Drysdale, and as you know, eventually broken by Orel Hershiser. Let's go back to this one. (9-0) Dodgers. Bolsinger has allowed just 1 hit. Nick Ahmed, the shortstop, flied to right in the 3rd inning. So Nick 0 for 1. Off speed, nice changeup. Andre Ethier, a base hit and a 3-run home run. He was aboard when Jimmy Rollins hit it out. 1-1. There's the ball that carried 3 runs home. And ball 2, 2-1. So Andre Ethier with his home run tonight now has 8, 25 runs batted in. And a strike. Chances are if Puig is ready to play tomorrow night, Andre would move to left field. Yasiel rested on purpose tonight by Don Mattingly with that tricky hamstring. Played a couple of rehabs, then a game against the Cardinals. They think it prudent to keep Puig out for the night, and as it turns out, they don't need him for sure. Tomorrow night, Carlos Frias and Robbie Ray, and then Wednesday night, Jeremy Hellickson and Brent Anderson. 3-2. Wow, missed by a lot. So Ahmed draws a walk. Aaron Hill the veteran second baseman who has some power, batting for Ruby De La Rosa. A nightmare game for Ruby.
Number 2, Aaron Hill.
Aaron Hill, who lost his job to Chris Owings. Hill hitting .238. He has 3 home runs, 15 runs batted in. And ball 1. Aaron Hill, that rarest of the rare. He hit for the cycle twice in the span of 11 days. That was back in 2012. I mean, it's something that was never done by Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, George Brett. They had a pair. Two and one to count. So De La Rosa, I'm sure, wanted to do well, beat his old ball club. Boy, it sure wasn't his night. That's in there. And talking about Hill's 2 cycles in an 11-day span, the San Diego Padres have never had one. Never had a player hit for a cycle, and they've been in the business in the big leagues since 1969. Aaron went to LSU, and now he goes to the bench. That's 7 strikeouts for Mike Bolsinger. Big curveball. So now Ender Inciarte tried to bunt his way aboard and was thrown out by Justin Turner. By the way, it would be kind of nice to hear something about Turner. He's been so valuable, making so many great plays. All we know is he fouled a ball off his knee, and no further word. Inciarte, last time up, single. He is the proud possessor of the only Arizona hit. Nine runs, 10 hits for the Dodgers, having one of those games. Little chopper over the head of Bolsinger, barehanded by Rollins, but no play. So Inciarte gets the base hit. Bolsinger up to get it. He's 6'2" and just missed it. Take another look. Up you go. No cigar. So Inciarte will take it. So he is 2 for 3. The only 2 Arizona hits. And here's A.J. Pollock, fly to center and struck out. And a drive to left center field and deep. Back goes Peterson. This is going to go off the wall. Jock gets it back in. 2 runs on the way. The second one just got in there. And it is 9-2. So A.J. Pollock hits the wall. Ahmed scores. Inciarte, who has good running speed, scores. Pollock comes up with a double and 2 runs batted in. It was a hanger, slow curveball, and Pollock knew exactly what to do with it. Jock guns it back in, but there was no play. There was a play on the second runner, but Inciarte came in standing up and just did avoid any tag. So a walk, a bouncer just inches over Bolsinger's glove for a hit, and then the long double. Still 1 out. 2-0. Goldie is grounded to third and walked. He has reached base 19 consecutive games when he walked in the 4th inning. Good strike. Light breeze now blowing from left to right. Not enough to affect the flight of a fly ball. 2-1. Off speed. 2-2 the count to Paul Goldschmidt. Goldie, a .345 hitter in his career at Dodger Stadium. He has a 2-2 count. He's hitting .306 on a 2-2 count this year. Ground foul. Goldie with a chance to pick up an RBI. He has 16 home runs, 47 runs batted in, and he averages a run batted in about every 4 at bats. Two balls, 2 strikes. And ball 3. See Grandal shifting at the last minute, and Bolsinger hit the mitt, but Goldschmidt would not bite. 3-2. Fouled away. In the last 16 games, plus tonight, Goldschmidt has walked 23 times. And you get 2 strikes on him, and he's hitting .297. Honeycutt checking with the bullpen. Nobody throwing yet. 3-2. And Bolsinger wants to talk to Grandal. The top hitters so far this time of year in the National League with 2 strikes, whether it's 0-2, 1-2, etc. D. Gordon hitting .305. Paul Goldschmidt .297, and Matt Carpenter of the Cardinals .288. Josh Raven gets up down in the Dodger bullpen. 3-2. Got him. 2 outs in the inning, 2 strikeouts in the inning, and Bolsinger has now struck out 8. Off speed, and he hit the glove exactly where Grandal had set it up. So Bolsinger doing a very nice job. 8 strikeouts. He's given up 1 walk. Tomas hit one off Bolsinger's leg, deflected to Kendrick, who threw him out. And the last time up, Yasmani Tomas grounded into a double play. This time, Callaspo to Gonzalez, and that's that. 2 runs for Arizona on 2 hits and a walk, and at the end of 5 1/2, Dodgers leading 9-2. and fireworks. Sure, July 4th, the Dodgers and the Mets stay after the game. See the sky light up with a spectacular 4th of July fireworks show presented by Cirque du Soleil. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotion. For the Dodgers, breezing 9-2. Mike Bolsinger, followed by Jock Peterson, and then Alberto Callaspo. And on the mound, J.C. Ramirez. Change in the outfield. David Hernandez going out there. Inciarte moves over. And J.C.'s about ready to go to work. That's ball one to Bolsinger. Bolsinger hit back to the box and struck out. Fastball sliced foul. J.C. Ramirez out there on the mound. Big man out of Managua in Nicaragua. Originally signed by Seattle back in 2006. Strike 1-2. Ramirez finally surfaced with the Phillies 2 years ago. Though Bolsinger looks at strike three, he's not about to argue with the umpire. He struck out 8.
Number 31, Jock Peterson.
So Jock Peterson coming up. Peterson flied to right, grounded out, and struck out. Oh, and 1. Dodgers having a field day tonight. The only ones on the outside looking in, Jock Peterson, who is 0 for 3, and the pitcher, Mike Bolsinger. Everybody else has at least 1. Howie Kendrick has 3 hits. Andre Ethier and Jimmy Rollins each have 3-run home runs. So the Dodgers figure to pick up a half a game on the idle Giants, and the lead once again would be 1 game. The only negative about the evening tonight is Justin Turner, and to what degree did he hurt his knee on that foul ball. Three and 1 to Jock. Flied to right, grounded to first, and struck out. Bolsinger has now made 84 pitches as Callaspo tunes up. We saw Raven throw a couple. Big chopper to the right side. So Peterson taps out. He goes 0 for 4, and Alberto Callaspo coming up.
Alberto Callaspo.
In case you weren't with us, we want to show you what happened to Justin Turner. Justin swings and hits the ball on his knee, goes down. It looked like right on the right knee. Then tried to play and just couldn't move and could barely get up. And eventually has to walk off. So we haven't heard anything else. That's all we know. Callaspo finishing up for Turner. 0 for 2. Grounded out last time up. One and 1. Dodgers scored 1 in the first, 5 in the fourth, and 3 more in the fifth. All those runs charged to De La Rosa. So it's another high-scoring game against him, but it kind of explains why he could be 2-0 over a 6-game stretch where he's averaging 9 runs a game. Three and one. And a high fly ball, shallow left, and it's an easy play. Peralta makes the catch. So the Dodgers go 1-2-3, and at the end of 6, 9-2 Dodgers. Brought to you by Nissan. Get to Nissan's ride of your life for exciting performance and surprising offer. Shop at ChooseNissan.com. And by DraftKings. Play daily fantasy baseball for free on DraftKings.com. Use promo code BlueCrew for free entry. Dodgers lead 9-2 as we move to the 7th inning. Jake Lamb followed by Chris Owings and then Wellington Castillo. If you're keeping score of the game, J.C. Ramirez goes into Yasmani Tomas's spot in cleanup, and David Peralta in left field is batting 9th. Meanwhile, Lamb struck out, grounded out, 0 for 2, and Bolsinger has now made 85 pitches. Ground ball, Gonzalez, overhands, perfect play. 1 out, 7th inning. Chris Owings coming up with an 11-game hitting streak, and he's 0 for 2. He has struck out twice. We get a report on Justin Turner, a contusion of the left knee, X-rays negative, and he's listed day to day. So that's good news. Now it's a question of how long before he can play again. Owings followed by the catcher, Wellington Castillo. Dodgers trying to make it 5 out of 7 against Arizona. Dodgers in the Western Division are 21-16. When they step out of the division against the Cardinals or when they play the Giants. They've lost 5 of 7 to the Cardinals. They've lost 7 of 9 to the Giants. J.P. Howell now gets up in the Dodger bullpen. So this could be Bolsinger's last inning. 3-0. So the problem for the Dodgers, certainly the last month, the bullpen tired, worn out, and the club struggling on the road. They are 10-15 away from Dodger Stadium. 3-1 to Owings. Frias tomorrow night. Anderson to close down the homestand. Fly ball. Peterson. 2 down. So Wellington Castillo, the catcher, has grounded out and struck out.
Number 7, Wellington Castillo.
Jock Peterson 0 for 4, but with a glove that has magic in it. So Bolsinger, from the looks of things, getting ready to face his last batter. When he gave up that run in the 6th inning that broke the string, he started the night with a consecutive scoreless streak here at Dodger Stadium of 18 2/3. So then he went 5. That gave him 23 2/3. Then he struck out Aaron Hill. Gave him 24. That's just fine. No balls, 2 strikes. And a fly ball. Good jump out there by Guerrero. So the Diamondbacks go 1-2-3. I would believe that's the last inning for Mike Bolsinger. As he walks off, he's done a great job. And at the end of 6.5, Dodgers lead 9-2. Dodgers with a 9-2 lead coming up here in the 7th inning. Adrian Gonzalez, Howie Kendrick, and then Yasmani Grandal. Mike Bolsinger made 94 pitches, and I believe he'll be coming out. That's ball 1. Gonzalez singled to center, grounded to second twice. When I say grounded to second, he grounded to right field, because Chris Owings is a good 25 feet out in shallow right. 1-1. There he is. Two balls and 1 strike. J.C. Ramirez, The JC stands for Juan Carlos from Managua. 6'3", 245. 95-mile-an-hour fastball. 3-1 to count. Mike Bolsinger just finishing a conversation with Rick Honeycutt, his pitching coach. 3-2. If Bolsinger picks up a victory, he will be 4-1, and 3 of the wins will be against Western Division teams. Ground ball to the right side, 1 away. So 3 times Gonzalez has grounded out to the right side tonight. And with 1 away, Howie Kendrick coming up. The third baseman, Jake Lamb, was playing second base on that ground ball. But rather than complicate matters, we'll call it a ground ball to the second baseman. So here's Kendrick. He is 3 for 3. 2 singles up the middle and a single to left. Howie has scored twice. Knocked in 1. Ramirez, pretty good four-seamer. He's been clocked as high as 98. Two-seamer at 93. Then he has a curveball, slider, and a changeup. They're especially high on his fastball and slider. He had hip surgery 5 years ago, fractured a thumb last year. He was out for about 8 to 10 weeks. Fractured left thumb and a ligament sprain. He was on a tag play and wrecked his hand. 2 balls, 1 strike to Howie Kendrick. Boy, that thing jumped up there. Three and 1. Another fastball, hard ground ball, but up with it is Ahmed. You know, Chip Hale, the manager of Arizona, has been quoted as saying he thinks Nick Ahmed's the best defensive shortstop in the National League. He's that high on him. Well, he made that look easy. Nick Ahmed, 2 down. Yasmani Grandal flied to center, walked and doubled. Ahmed, Peralta, and Inciarte are due up when Arizona bats in the 8th inning. Dodgers 9 runs, 10 hits. Arizona 2 runs, 3 hits. They'll check. No swing, says Tony Randazzo. 2-0. And ball 3. Interesting, Mike Bolsinger was drafted in 2010 in the 15th round by Arizona. That same draft, the Dodgers got Jock Peterson, Scott Schebler, and Zach Lee. Chopper foul. Bolsinger talking to Scott Van Slyke. Bolsinger's earned run average at Dodger Stadium was 2.6. So he has had another great 7 innings tonight. 3-2 to Grandal. 2 out, bottom of the 7th, bases empty. And the Dodgers leading handily 9-2. Still 3-2. Dodgers trying to make it 7 straight at Dodger Stadium against Arizona, and 11 out of 13 here. Arizona came into the ballgame 4.5 games behind the Dodgers, and a reminder: the Giants did not play today. Dodgers could then have a 1-game lead. Fly ball. It's Pollock and Peralta, and it's Peralta. So the Dodgers go out in order. That's 7 in a row since the home run by Ethier. And at the end of 7, 9-2 Dodgers. Enter J.P. For about 4 innings. Dodgers scored in the first inning, led 1-0, and then in the bottom of the 4th inning, the Dodgers exploded for 5. A big swing, a 3-run home run by Jimmy Rollins. And then, as if they needed more, they got another big swing and a 3-run home run by Andre Ethier. Well, that was more than enough for Mike Bolsinger. He sailed for 94 pitches, won 7, and allowed just 2 earned runs while striking out 8. Now it's up to J.P. Howell and the Dodger pen to get the last 6 outs. J.P. will face Nick Ahmed, David Peralta, and then Ender Inciarte. Ahmed, the shortstop, flied to right and walked. Howell ready. Here we go. Starts him with a strike, and the count 0-1. JP pitched a third of an inning against the Cardinals yesterday. He's at scoreless relief as he works on Ahmed. 19 of 21 appearances. 0-2. In fact, going back 18 consecutive appearances without allowing an earned run since the 14th of April. Right-handers batting .219 against him. Josh Raven loosens up. He might pitch the 9th. Ground foul outside of third. 0-2 to Nick Ahmed. Ahmed came into the game hitting .212. He surrendered 1 point. But in his last 14 games on the road, he was hitting .333. A little while ago, he had a 9-game hitting streak. Still 0-2. So J.P. Howell punching in the time clock. This would be his 22nd game. His earned run average is 0.6. 1-2. Dodger bullpen prior to tonight had turned in 158 innings. Arizona 203. Still 1-2 to Nick Ahmed. David Peralta and then Ender Inciarte. Two balls, two strikes. Chased one. He's claiming he foul tipped it. Umpire said no, the tag, we have an out. So Ahmed strikes out while he talks to Will Little. Bat going through. He thought he got a little bit of it. Grandal picks it up. And let's take a look from this side. The swing. No visible contact. And down he goes. Chip Hale going out to make sure his young shortstop did not get the boot. So 9 D-backs have struck out tonight. And here's Peralta. Peralta could certainly write a book about his baseball career. He's from Carabobo in Venezuela. 2 years ago, his baseball odyssey had already covered 9 seasons, 5 leagues, 3 countries, 2 continents, and 5 winters that he played in Venezuela. David was originally signed by the Cardinals as a left-handed pitcher at 17 and pitched 3 years in the Cardinal organization. He was released, but he was only 21. As David said, no one said I should give up. So I moved to the outfield, and here he is. One ball and 2 strikes to David Peralta. No relation to Johnny Peralta, the shortstop of the Cardinals. David hitting .259 as he checks in against J.P. Howell. 1 out, 8th inning, 9-2 Dodgers. And ball 3. It's a rare for the Dodgers to do it tonight, but they stack up the infield on Peralta. Three and 2. Big chopper. Gonzalez hangs it to Howell coming over. 2 down in the 8th inning. Ender Inciarte coming up. Inciarte, 2 hits, 2 for 3, scored a run. His second hit was that a high bouncer. Mike Bolsinger up in the air, could not get it. There was no play by Rollins. The other base hit, clean single to left. 9 runs, 10 hits for the Dodgers. 2 runs, 3 hits for Arizona. Arizona will fall back 5.5 games back, losing tonight. Knocked down by J.P. What a play. And that's the 3rd out. So J.P. Howell leaping at the ball. And it goes 1-3. So the D-backs go quietly. That's 3, 6, 8 in a row retired. And we're heading for the bottom of the 8th. 9-2 Dodgers. 2015 Esurance MLB All-Star Game ballot, and you can do it right now at Dodgers.com/vote. Voting is exclusively online, available on your computer, tablet, and smartphone. So vote up to 35 times at Dodgers.com/vote. You just wonder, if you allow somebody to vote 35 times, who's counting? I mean, 35 times. So vote. Be our guest. Alex Guerrero starting it off. Cliff Pennington is now at third. Jake Lamb moves over to first, and Paul Goldschmidt calls it a night. Goldie had grounded out, walked, and struck out. Guerrero has struck out twice, but singled in the fourth inning, and drives one foul upstairs down the line. We're in the bottom of the eighth inning, 9-2 in favor of the Dodgers. Fastball and a mile-high fly ball, but playable. A.J. Pollock is there. So one away in the eighth inning. Dodgers had those flurries, 2 3-run home runs by Rollins in the fourth and Ethier in the fifth. And since then, we can take a look at Ethier's home run. The Dodgers have just stopped 8 in a row retired since Andre hit one in the bullpen. So Ethier also singled in the fourth inning, 2 for 3. Little ground ball to the right side, Chris Owings. And we have 2 down in the eighth inning. Nine in a row since Ethier's home run. And talking about home runs, there's Jimmy Rollins. He came up when it was still a game. 2 men on in the fourth inning, and Jimmy hit one out. 3-run home run, made it a 5-run inning, and that, for all intents and purposes, broke the back of the game. That made it 6-0. Ethier made it 9-0. And here we are in the bottom of the eighth. Rollins flied to center, hit the 3-run home run, and grounded out. It's been De La Rosa and J.C. Ramirez. Raven has been throwing in the Dodger bullpen, though Howell made 15 pitches. Two balls and no strikes. Big ground ball, backhanded at first by Lamb. Feeds his man Ramirez. That's 10 in a row retired since the home run by Ethier. And at the end of 8 innings, Dodgers 9, Arizona 2. pitching would certainly be the player of the game. That would be Mike Bolsinger, who struck out 8 and was in charge all the way. So Bolsinger, he'll go back home tonight with a record of 4-1, and he will settle, having gone 5 1/3. He will have settled with 24 consecutive scoreless innings at Dodger Stadium before Arizona scored twice in the 6th. So Josh Raven, a local boy from West Hills. He went to Chatsworth High School. Josh is a big fella, 6'5", 210, 27 years old. Originally signed by the Reds back in 2006. He hung tough. He never had an appearance with the Reds, never made it to the big leagues until this year. Almost 10 years in the minor leagues. Fastball for ball 1. Raven is good size, 6'5", 210. Definitely a dedicated player to spend all those years in the minor leagues. Throwing hard, hits 100 on the gun, but he's behind in the count. 2 balls and no strikes. Quote the Raven, nevermore, but not this Raven. He hung in there and made it to the big leagues. In there. The paid attendance tonight, 42,167. 42,167. Hope you'll be out here tomorrow night. Carlos Frias tomorrow night, and Brett Anderson on Wednesday night before the Dodgers go out on the road. Fastball missed. Wow, throwing 98, 100, 3 balls, 1 strike. When you see a fella like that, with that kind of ability, how is it he spent 10 years in the minor leagues? Shows you how tough it can be in the minors as you work your way up to A, AA, AAA. Fastball fouled away, and that's 98. Whoa. He was chosen in the 5th round by the Reds. Got a small bonus considering what they pay people. He's fastball, curveball, changeup. 3-2. Fastball hit to the gap in left center. Peterson on his horse. 1 away. So one good center fielder hits it to another one, and we have 1 down. Cliff Pennington will be coming up, finishing up at third base. Pennington is a switch hitter, hitting 164, left-handed, 159 overall. On deck is the pitcher spot, and Jared Saltalamacchia, the catcher, is on deck. Ball 1. Pennington was the Oakland A's first-round pick out of Texas A&M. So they certainly thought highly of him. He's from Corpus Christi, Texas. He's 5'10", 210. We mentioned it before. His father wrote a book about his son, Cliff, called Too Small to Play Ball. And it focused on the mental side of playing the game. Pennington was an All-American, first-team All-State, All-District honors in high school. And he promptly pulls one down the right field line, in there for a base hit. So down by 7 runs, Pennington will hold on with a single to right. And that will bring up Salty, as they call him. Jared Saltalamacchia. Got to have a broad back to carry that name on your uniform, and Salty has just that. Saltalamacchia from West Palm Beach, Florida. Back in 2003, Salty was a first-round pick by the Atlanta Braves. Came up in 07 and then went to the Rangers. Then from the Rangers, several years with the Red Sox, and now here he is with Arizona. There goes the runner to second base. Defensive indifference. So Pennington at second, 1 out. 0-1 the count to Salty. He's 6'4", 235. He's also 30 years old. And 2. Saltalamacchia 1 year with the Red Sox. Hit 25 home runs. That was back in 2012. 1 year he hit 273. One and 2, but as a first round pick, just like Cliff Pennington, that meant they really expected more than he actually delivered for one reason or another. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Ground ball, Kendrick on the grass. 2 down. Pennington moving over to third base. Jake Lamb coming up.
Number 19, Jake Lamb.
Dodgers 9 runs, 10 hits. Arizona 2 runs, 4 hits, and 1 error. Lamb struck out, grounded out twice, 0 for 3. Jimmy Rollins, pleasant night for Jimmy with that 3-run home run. Andre Ethier in right field had the 3-run home run and a base hit as well. Everybody in the starting lineup, discounting pitchers, the only one on the outside looking in, the young center fielder Jock Peterson. Jock went 0 for 4, the only one to miss out. Peterson, meanwhile, having fun, wigwagging over to Chris Heisey. Draws a smile from Chris. 0-1. Boy, Raven is certainly impressive. 97, 98. The very first pitch he made was 100. And the 42,167. Rooting now for him to close up shop. 0-2. And lined into right field on a 97-mile-an-hour fastball. So what it really means in the big leagues, he might be throwing hard, but the ball apparently is not moving. There are a lot of pitchers who will tell you, I would rather have movement on a 93-mile-an-hour fastball, just make an impressive 97 or 98. So if they're coming up straight, it doesn't make any difference to big league hitters. If it's not moving, they don't care how fast it's coming. So that makes it 9-3. And here's Chris Owings, who has struck out twice, fly to center. And the runner going down to second again. Defensive indifference. So Lamb at second with 2 out. 0-1 the count. Chris Owings. Now that had some movement. That was not a fastball. That was a slider. Boy, that was a big breaking slider. Take a look. Whoop. No balls and 2 strikes. 42,167 up and at him. Owings with Castillo on deck. And breaking ball got him. So after all those impressive fastballs at 98, when the job had to be done, 2 breaking balls take care of Owings, and Arizona settles for a run. The totals on the game: 9 runs, 10 hits for the Dodgers, 3 runs, 5 hits for Arizona. Player of the game we mentioned earlier, Mike Bolsinger. Home runs, 3-run home runs by Jimmy Rollins and Andre Ethier. And tomorrow night, Carlos Frias will be in Game 2 of the 3-game series. We'll talk to you then. Till then, from all of us to all of you, we wish you a very pleasant good night, everybody.